Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Luke, the 23rd chapter. And the whole multitude of them arose and led him onto Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, "We found this fellow perverting the nation." So they took him to Pilate. They're like, "Okay, this is a Roman official, a governor, and so we want this guy dead." And forbidding to give tribute to Caesar, saying that he himself is Hamashiach, a king. So they're like, he said he's king. He's saying, nobody got to pay tribute to Caesar. He's basically perverting the nation. And Pilate asked him, saying, "Art thou the king of the Jews?" And he answered him and said, "Thou sayest." That's what you're saying, right? That's what they say. That's what people say. Then said Pilate to the chief priests and to the people, and actually just read this. Let's see what they have in some of these other translations. Yep, you have said it. You have said so. You say so. It is as you say. Then said Pilate to the chief priests and to the people, "I find no fault in this man." And they were the more fierce. They were not trying to hear that. Saying, "He stirreth up the people, teaching throughout all Jewry, beginning from Galilee to this place." He has a reputation. He's been doing this all the way from Galilee all the way up down here. When Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked whether the man were a Galilean. And as soon as he knew that he belonged unto Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who himself also was at Jerusalem at that time, because Herod really wanted to see Yahushua. And when Herod saw Yahushua, he was exceeding glad, for he was desirous to see him of a long season, because he had heard many things of him, and he hoped to have seen some miracle done by him. This guy. Then he questioned him with many words, but he answered him nothing. And the chief priests and scribes stood and vehemently accused him. And Herod with his men of war set him at naught, and mocked him, and arrayed him in a gorgeous robe. Where we at? Slakia. In a gorgeous robe, and sent him again to Pilate. And let's look at that gorgeous robe. Yeah, a royal robe, because remember, they were mocking him as being king. That's why they put the crown of thorns on his head. And the same day, Pilate and Herod were made friends together, for before they were at enmity between themselves. So they were doing this back and forth. Pilate sends Yahushua. Herod wanted to really see him. Herod gets to see him. All right, they're cool now. And Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests and the rulers of and the people, said unto them, "Ye have brought this man unto me as one that perverteth the people, and behold, I having examined him before you, have found no fault. I interrogated him. We did all that. I don't see anything wrong with this guy. In this man, touching those things whereof ye accuse him. No, nor yet Herod. I didn't find anything wrong. Herod didn't find anything wrong." Now think about how condemning this actually is to these wicked Israelites here. To where heathens, Edomites at that, couldn't find fault with Yahushua. And yet they still pushed for him to be put to death. This is the part showing you that they put an innocent man to death. Because even them heathens were like, nah, what did he do? And lo, nothing worthy of death is done unto him. I will therefore chastise him and release him. So I'm gonna beat him. Okay, we're going to scourge him and then release him. Okay. For of necessity he must release one unto them at the feast. And they cried out all at once, saying, "Away with this man, and release unto us Barabbas, who for a certain sedition made in the city, and for murder was cast into prison." So they said, "No, we want Barabbas. Yeah, he was a murderer. Yeah, he caused some sedition, but we'll take him." Pilate, therefore, willing to release Yahushua, spake again unto them. But they cried, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. And he said unto them the third time, Why? What evil hath he done? I have found no cause of death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. So he was he was low-key pushing back. Like, look, let me just beat him real bad and then let him go, because he hasn't done anything worthy to be put to death. And they were instant with loud voices, requiring that he might be crucified. And the voices of them and of the chief priests prevailed. And Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they required. And he released unto them him that for sedition and murder was cast into prison, whom they had desired, but he delivered Yahushua to their will. That's crazy. And as they led him away, they laid hold upon one Simon, a Cyrenian, coming out of the country, and on him they laid the cross, that he might bear it after Yahushua. And there followed him a great company of people and of women, which also bewailed and lamented him. But Yahushua, turning unto them, said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming, in the which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bare, and the paps that never gave suck. Why? Because that calamity was still coming. And he said this many times, right? That time when it would be better that you didn't have children. Woe unto you that give suck in those days. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills cover us, right? They're going to seek refuge because of the destruction the Romans were going to bring upon them. For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry? And reading this in the NLT, right, it says, For if these things are done when the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry? Now, looking at the footnote, then this explanation is a bit better. Or if these things are done unto me, the living tree, what will happen to you, the dry tree? And that's why he said, don't weep for me. And there were also two other malefactors led with him to be put to death, right? These being the other criminals, you could say, that were being executed as well. And when they were come to the place which is called Calvary, there they crucified him, and the malefactors on the right hand and on the left. And let's look into that word, Calvary. It says here a skull, right? So I believe this is worded as Golgotha in another, in one of the other books, one of the other gospels. Let me see if I cross-reference that. Yeah, Golgotha, which is to say a place of a skull. Then said Yahushua, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they parted his raiment and cast lots. And this was prophesied to happen. And the people stood beholding, so they were watching. And the rulers also with them deriding him, saying, He saved others, let him save himself, if he be the anointed, the chosen of God. And the soldiers also mocked him, coming to him and offering him vinegar, right? Acting like, oh, he's a king. Oh, you're a king. Here, my lord. Here, have some vinegar. And saying, If thou be king of the Jews, save thyself, my lord. And a superscription also was written over him in letters of Greek and Latin and Hebrew, This is the King of the Jews. So they mocked him. They put him up there. They put an innocent man to death and mocked him at that. And one of the malefactors which were hanged railed on him, right? Because they were nailed to the cross, saying, If thou be Hamashiach, if you're the anointed, save thyself and us. So if you're really the anointed, yo, what you doing? Get yourself off of here and us too. But the other answering rebuked him, saying, Dost not thou fear God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation, you dummy? And let me read this in the NLT as well. It says, but the other criminal protested, don't you fear God even when you have been sentenced to die? And we indeed justly, for we received the due reward of our deeds. So he's saying we're criminals. We actually, did things worthy of this, but this man hath done nothing amiss. He's innocent. And he said unto Yahushua, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. So that other malefactor believed. And Yahushua said unto him, verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. Because they were both going to die, and they were both going to go to the spirit world. But that malefactor, the one that spoke right on Yahushua's behalf, he did a good thing. And that just might have been good enough to get him his ticket into the into the kingdom. And it was about the 6th hour, which is about 12 noon, we would say. And there was a darkness over all the earth unto the 9th hour. So from about what we would say noon to about 3 p.m., it was dark. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst. And that sun being darkened was like a solar eclipse, right? The sun being blocked out. And when Yahushua had cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And having said thus, he gave up the ghost. Now when the centurion saw what was done, he glorified God, saying, certainly this was a righteous man. And all the people that came together to that sight, beholding the things which were done, smote their breasts and returned, which is like a sign of mourning. And all his acquaintance and the women that followed him from Galilee stood afar off, beholding these things. So you can tell they were crying, they were weeping, right? Because they were watching, and eventually they saw Yahushua die, right? He gave up the ghost. And behold, there was a man named Joseph, a counselor, and he was a good man and a just, meaning he was of the council, right? So he was one like a member of the council, as it says here, NLT. Now there was a good and righteous man named Joseph. He was a member of the Jewish High Council, likely of the Sanhedrin. The same had not consented to the counsel and deed of them. So he wasn't in agreement of them issuing this giving this judgment to cast this upon Yahushua. He was of Arimathea, a city of the Jews, who also himself waited for the kingdom of God. So he believed. This man went unto Pilate and begged the body of Yahushua, and he took it down and wrapped it in linen and laid it in a sepulchre that was hewn in stone, wherein never man laid before. So a tomb, right, that nobody had ever been put into. And that day was the preparation, and the Sabbath drew on. So right before the Sabbath comes in, right, that's the time of preparation before the sun goes down. And the women also, which came with him from Galilee, followed after and beheld the sepulchre and how his body was laid. So they saw how he was put in there, and they returned and prepared spices and ointments and rested the Sabbath day according to the commandment. So they prepared those because they wanted to go in and embalm his body, but they had to wait, because the Sabbath was coming in. So after the Sabbath, they would go. NLT, it says, or anoint his body. NLT, it says, then they went home and prepared spices and ointments to anoint his body. But by the time they were finished, the Sabbath had begun, so they rested as required by the law. And that brings us to the end of the book of Luke, the 23rd chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rachah Kodesh. And until next time, Shalom.